Holly Hudson. Holly, a very good evening to you. So you've got the leaders of France, Britain and Germany calling on Tehran to refrain from further violent action and reverse all measures inconsistent with the nuclear deal. Very interesting, considering that they're saying they're speaking to both sides, trying to temper down flared emotions from both sides.
Yes, definitely. The message here in Europe is for calm, very much calling for calm and a de-escalation of tensions. In the last few minutes, we've heard from the UK Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, and Boris Johnson and senior ministers have been holding emergency talks in Downing Street today over the deepening crisis. And Dominic Raab has said that British view is very much to find a diplomatic way through this, as well as obviously the concern over the safety of UK citizens and military personnel in the area. They want to diplomatically find a way through this, and they're calling for a de-escalation of tensions, something of course that is shared by other EU leaders. Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel issued a joint statement alongside Boris Johnson on Sunday night, urging restraint on behalf of Iran and on all sides, I should say. When asked about whether the US was actually right to assassinate Iran's second most powerful man, the Foreign Secretary earlier said that he was a threat, and that is something that the UK government have been quite clear on. Their view that General Soleimani was somebody that posed a threat to all of our interests, was how Boris Johnson put it. So essentially underlining the US's claim that he was a threat, that they should have assassinated him. But in terms of the EU stance, there's been a meeting of NATO today in Brussels, emergency meeting. We've heard from them. They've said that a new conflict is in nobody's interest and that Iran must refrain from further violence. They've also said that they will suspend activities in the country as safety of personnel is paramount. So a real sign there of exactly how serious a magnitude and how serious NATO is taking this. Boris Johnson has today as well had a phone call with Iraq's Prime Minister, where he has again urged for a de-escalation of tensions and also agreed to find a diplomatic way forward. Britain very much concerned over the potential threat of Iraq to expel British troops in the region. In a statement, Downing Street said that the Prime Minister had underlined UK's unwavering commitment to Iraq's stability and sovereignty and the importance, crucially, of the continued fight against Daesh. So that is very much what Britain is particularly concerned about, that what they say the shared threat of ISIS and the continued stability in the region. It's a very difficult situation for Boris Johnson to navigate as a new Prime Minister, essentially, both diplomatically and in terms of a defence perspective. And the pressure will only grow tomorrow when he has to face Parliament and explain the situation to MPs.
I want to ask you about the fact that those who've argued that symbolically Iran has to make some sort of move, especially given how Soleimani was killed. And there are those who are raising the question of its ballistic missiles, saying that is a primary concern, including the moving of the naval and air defense units to sort of move them around with no sign of increased activity, but also increased defense for the country. How serious are those concerns? Are the next couple of hours crucial for European leaders, and are they working at neck-break speed to prevent any kind of aggression?
Well, I think that the response from NATO today signifies just how serious they're taking this vow of revenge by Iran, of revenge and retaliation. Washington, Westminster and other Western sort of capitals are waiting really to see exactly what that response might be, and really calling for calm and trying to prevent any further escalation of tensions or violence. In regards to the UK's response, they of course have deployed further HMS warships to the Strait of Hormuz, that key shipping lane, oil shipping lane in the Gulf. There's of course fears of reprisals, a repeat situation of what happened earlier last year when oil tankers in the region were of course seized by Iran. There's also other consequences as well that are already being felt, in particular with regards to as you just earlier mentioned, Iran, the nuclear deal. Iran, of course, said that they will not abide by the limits set by that nuclear deal. And that's something that the EU have been desperately trying to save in recent months. It was seen as a landmark deal when it was first agreed in 2015 by those 6 countries that signed up to it, essentially averting a war and, of course, restraining Iran's nuclear capabilities in favour of lifting crushing economic sanctions. The US, of course, have put that at risk recently by abandoning that deal. That's increased tensions, and now this obviously faces another setback. The EU and the UK urging Iran, or trying to persuade Iran not to abandon that, as well as the military situation and threat in the Strait of Hormuz. I mentioned the situation with regards to troops in Iraq. The UK very much concerned about the ongoing threat of Daesh and IS and what any expulsion of troops from Iraq might do to that ongoing military operation there. And as well, here there is actually a case of a British Iranian woman, Nazanin Zaghari Radcliffe, that has been ongoing for several years. She was detained in 2016 in Iran over espionage charges. Her husband has been pushing, and there has been a diplomatic push for several years for her release. And her husband today has come out and said that, of course, this will affect any chances of her release, these relations breaking down between Iran and the West. So several consequences potentially for Britain, not least as well diplomatically with all these nations and the US as well. This is, of course, a trying time with Brexit on the horizon, and that will no doubt have a part to play in the US and UK relations too.
Thank you very much, Holly. Keep your eyes on the SABC for further updates.